So I think that adaptability is so key. Just letting go of that rigidness of like, I have to reach that and I have to reach it this way. That's the key point of being open to possibilities that your business is actually teaching you while you're growing.
In today's episode of the Master Your Business podcast, I chat to Swadhin, also known as Swey, actively weaving a space for creatives like her through her techniques and creations to guide them to leading a more abundant life in all aspects. In this episode, we chat about the methods that she uses to manage her 6 businesses with ease. Yes, you heard me correctly, folks. She manages 6 businesses. We talk about the significance of effective employee integrations and how the right branding and correct messaging can lead to your success. If you have a moment after you've listened to this episode, please rate and review the show, or even just share it with somebody who you know is maybe going to benefit from some of the topics that we've talked about in this episode. So let's get straight to it. Swey, you are currently juggling 6 businesses and are about to launch a 7th. How on earth are you doing that? Tell us.
I get this question asked so many times. It's insane. But I think the simple answer to that is really time management and just making sure that you still feel the drive towards all the creations that you've brought to life, because many people kind of get stuck in the idea creation. And I've noticed this about myself ever since I was young, that I don't like it when an idea stays an idea. So I always feel this impulsive nature coursing through me to make sure that an idea actually transpires and transfers into an actual creation. So I think the 2 main things for me so far has been amazing time management, having that support to actually keep up my time management. And then the second part is to keep giving myself reasons to keep falling back in love with what I do. You know, that's basically it.
And so, okay, you've got 6 different businesses, and talk about the people and the team, on the ground that are helping you run these businesses, because you're a highly successful entrepreneur. And for people listening, I'm looking face to face here with Swey. She looks like so young. I'm like, how is she doing this? So yeah, tell us please, Swey.
First of all, I am young. Thank you. I mean, at heart, at everything else. But I don't think it ever matters really about like where you are or what phase you are in life. But specifically, right now, I have so much support. So all my 6 different businesses have support in different categories. So for example, the first business that I started, Kaleidoscopic Vision, it's basically a corporation, but I don't like labeling it as such. But it's a pretty big company that has minor departments in it. And I basically started off with its CEO and co-founder, but then now I'm just taking care of the developmental parts of it, and I focus on the more branding and visual direction for the big projects that come through. And my husband, he's obviously a big support because he co-founded it with me. So he's there. He kind of leads the whole technicality aspect. I'm the one who kind of brings the visions to life. I give the direction, and he's like, okay, so she's saying ABC, let's bring this ABC to A.1, A.2, B.1, B.2, AB.1, all of that stuff. So we have us 2 leading, and then we have our main ground. So we have an executive assistant for him. We have a separate assistant for me. This is purely because we just have such different timelines. He's doing his own thing as well. I'm doing my own thing. And then right after that, we have our big main directors, strategists, designers who kind of have been with us from the very beginning. And right under them, there are, we call mini teams. So they're always in rotation. So depending on, let's say, we usually handle 10 projects at one go. So 10 projects, when we're handling the 10 projects, there's always one team that handles 2 projects at a time. And we end up segregating and delegating these particular projects based on how the team, I wouldn't say is fully fleshed out, but on their key points, on their skill set, on what they're better at. Because some projects come in and they have very specific needs. For example, if we're dealing with a product-based client who has like 10 different products in their catalog, that kind of vision needs a different direction in comparison to business or brand that just has one product or one service to cater to. And then again, based on the industry, based on the field. So we have like rosters of many teams underneath. So I have a lot of support, which I'm really, 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 really grateful for. And that's made it very easy. My second business, which is Sway to Success, that's kind of based on my personality, my brand. I direct it, I lead it. I have a very intimate team. I started off Sway to Success with the idea of kaleidoscopic vision, thinking it would be a big company and whatnot. But that did not work out for me, did not work out for the business, and that is something I learned the hard way. But I have a very intimate team in place. I have someone who specifically coordinates collaboration, specifically coordinates lead management, tracking, and all of that stuff, because the business model is so different in comparison to KB. So I have like a group of 3, 4, and sometimes when someone's on paternity or maternity or some sort of leave or mental health break, there's always someone who we're training in the back end. So this is something that my companies do. We always have training facilitation to make sure that if there is someone who's not available, because life always happens, there is someone else who can just step in. So like I said, each different business has a different model, and based on the model, there are either very intimate teams or large teams. So yeah, that's how I'm getting the ground support, and that's how I'm being able to do my magic.
Amazing. And like, I'm picking up on so many amazing leadership skills here from everything you've said so far. And like, what would you say has led you to achieve the success? Like, what has been the crux and drivers and motivations that got you to where you are today?
Okay, so this part specifically, I want to like segregate it into 2 categories. One is the practical end of things, the actual milestones, how I fell, how I kind of rose, and the aspects that we kind of overlook a lot, which is the mental health aspect, the inner work aspect. So I'm going to dive into the practical aspect. Most people thought at the beginning when I had started off that this wouldn't be something that we would be able to do. So there was a lot of judgment in that sense, and people take it 2 different ways. You could either get super motivated when someone tells you no, or you can get down and be like, you know what, I give up. I was the kind of person who was like, we're going to do it. And my husband was the one who felt really down and very impacted by that. So we were on 2 different spectrums, which really allowed us to have a middle ground. So there was just the right amount. If you look at it as a potion, just the right amount of cautiousness, just the right amount of risk assessments, and also just the right amount of like, okay, this is our ceiling. This is what we can hit within this risk assessment. So when we started off, we kind of took off really quickly because of this concoction. So right off the bat, I would say the most practical thing that has helped me grow is having that someone who can balance me out. And that could be in terms of a friend. It could be in terms of a partnership and in terms of investments. I have other friends in my network who had similar support like me, where the portion of that, concoction of like knowing where you can motivate yourself to like hit this ceiling, and also having that, okay, these are the risks that we really have to factor in. These are the things that we really have to factor in. And these are the boundaries we cannot cross, just to make sure that we're okay. So I have friends who've had this with investors, angel investors, or investors who came on board as co-founders at the early stages. So I think this was really important. Having someone who you can run your ideas with and go like, okay, I know how to bring this to life. What am I not seeing? Because I'm just going to be seeing from the dimensions that I have been cultivated to look through. And then my husband was able to look at it from a different perspective. So that really helped us. And we hit about our first 6 figures in the first 3 months, and then 7 figures in the next 3 months. So in our first 6 months in business, we were already there. Once we hit that, we had a really difficult time managing, because we got on board some employees at that time. And this was the model at that time where we thought that we need rigid employees for every single department or space. That was a mistake. That was a big mistake for us. I learned this the hard way because we realized very soon that within 6 months of business, when we hit that far, the reason why employees were coming on board, the reason why we had the support, their drive was on such a different level in comparison to us. So it was very difficult to kind of get the vision of the business at the same time, keep the integrity of the vision of the founders, which was my husband and I, intact. And that was just not meshing. So we did see a dip after the first 6 months. We saw a dip and we went back to like 6 figures for the next foreseeable 3 months or so. And that was a difficult time in the sense that we felt like we were running behind something, but we didn't know what it was. And so we had to let go all the employees that we got on board. And trust me, it was difficult. It was such a difficult decision. But we were really grateful that we got the opportunity to learn it the way we did. Of course, it would have been better if we didn't have to, but I'm super grateful today that we learned the way we did, because now some of the employees that we actually onboarded that time, which was about like 6-7 years ago now, some of them have actually onboarded in a different facilitation. Either they're coming on board to give consultation for like some bundle packages or this or that. So there's been healthy incorporation, healthy integration. So that's the practical end where like we really had to understand what the business was trying to communicate, which was after you reach a certain stage, whether you foresee it, whether you don't foresee it, you will still need guidance. Because I wouldn't say that it was by fluke that it happened. It was definitely because of the concoction that we had. But also, once you reach a certain peak, you have to know that the same operations will just not do the trick. Just not do the trick. So what has implemented now, KB runs more smoothly. For example, back then we had 10 different operations that were like parallelly happening, and it made us reach to that peak. But to maintain it, we realized we really had to let go of some of those operations, let go of some of the investment, whether it was in terms of time, whether it was terms of resources, whether it was human or non-human, whatever. When we realized that, KB started to fluidly flow a lot better, because now our business from the inner structure was having a more clean focus. I say clean focus very intentionally, because the whole point of a business plan, which I realized now after so many years, is that you have a business plan, you have a business model in place to make sure that you're not doing something, because you cannot do everything. If you keep doing everything, your business is never going to succeed, because you're always putting in so much effort and consistency in places that will guarantee a burnout on a larger scale. And when you start seeing that burnout, it may start off very small, which is what happened to us. But then that burnout starts spreading like a disease and ends up going everywhere. So this is what we learned, that when you're scaling, it's very important to review. Once you've hit that mark, you've hit your 6 figures, 7 figures, review. What can I let go of now? What operations can I stop? What has performed a lot? Take all that data, take all of that analytics, and go like, what has performed the most? And how can I, let's say if you've been putting in X amount of effort in operation B and X amount of effort in operation E. So it's time to see how much of the effort in which areas have really performed, and how much can you integrate and merge these two operations as one, while making sure that the core focus of those operations are still there, So that has really helped us scale and keep that consistency. And so that's the practical part. The second part was just changing our mindset towards, what it really meant for us. What did these numbers mean for us? When we first saw 6-7 figures, I came from a wealthy family, but I left home at 16. So it was for me like, oh, this is just a check mark. I can do it on my own. For my husband, on the other hand, that was not the case. He kind of had a rougher childhood, even growing up. So when we hit those figures, we were like, we both were torn of like what these numbers meant to us. And because we are the visionaries, the caterers, the creators, it was so important for us to take a step back and go like, okay, we've hit this. Do we want to continue hitting this? Is it serving us? Because I have seen, and this has happened to me myself, in some businesses, it is not healthy for you to be hitting 7 figures. Your business doesn't consistently need to hit 8 figures. You don't need to be a multimillionaire in that aspect. And once we realized what our intentions were, what these numbers meant for us, and how we were going to be able to kind of soak it in and integrate it into our lives, we understood, okay, this is how we can sort of embrace the fact that this is what we can accept. This is the kind of reality we want. So when it did dip, the time that it did dip from 7 figures to hitting 6 figures, we really put ourselves in this place like, so what? It's 6 figures to 7 figures. Is that okay? Let's look at, more importantly, are we going on a monthly revenue basis, or are we going on an annual revenue basis? What is it that's really, what is the main number? Once we did that, we have to also understand that just because a company is performing a certain way, it doesn't say anything about us or how we function as people, or we function as the founders or co-founders or developers or whatnot. And it does not even in any shape or form reflect on the team. Because I think, again, if your operations are fluid and you're doing the foundational things, right? It should all be like oil work, smooth running. But if your foundations are not right, you have to expect that it will impact you. Again, like I said, the burnout that spreads like a disease. And that's exactly the mindset and inner work that my husband and I had to do. And we realized that what mattered to us was the revenue that we were getting in the end and the numbers that we were seeing on the annual basis. And that detachment from the monthly basis and delegating that and being like, okay, someone else take care of that and see how this is really impacting us at an annual level made it so much easier for us to just look at the bigger picture and try to focus on the bigger picture and try to go like, okay, so we're trying to impact people. We're trying to bring these conscious brands to life. And we cannot do that if we have to worry every single freaking month on like, are we hitting this goal? Are we hitting that goal? So that was the first mindset. Second was that having the flexibility to adapt to your goals. Sometimes you can set a goal and that's amazing. Setting these intentions, setting goals in business and life is amazing. But having that flexibility, that skill or that, aspect in yourself that you are able to adapt or change or mold yourself or the goal or the intention in accordance to how things are flowing. So one of the things that happened during the dip that was so crucial was that we had one of our really strong employees who was kind of like, who is now a big part of our team. But at that time, she was having some troubles with her family, and it was kind of a lot, and we were like, okay, how do we still prioritize our team? How do we still prioritize operations? How do we still prioritize everything while prioritizing the inner workings of the business, which is the team members, which is the support. And at that time, when we looked at our goals, we're like, okay, how can we adapt this goal in a way that fits us, fits her, fits everything, and we still meet it? And if we didn't give ourselves the chance to actually adapt and mold the goal, I promise you it would have been a harder journey to be able to go and like bring that fluidity in. So I think that adaptability is so key. Just letting go of that rigidness of like, I have to reach that and I have to reach it this way, because that's the key point of being open to possibilities that your business is actually teaching you while you're growing. So yeah, these are my 3 pointers or 4 pointers. I don't even know how many I mentioned, but yeah, so that's basically it.
That's amazing. And I mean, I hadn't really planned on asking you questions about employees and managing teams and things like that, because I suppose largely this show is about branding, marketing, sales, and customer experience, but it's very difficult to deliver any of those in a really effective way without first managing the people who are on your team. And so let's delve into that a little bit more, because right now, in every person I speak to, regardless of what industry they're in, they're struggling with resourcing and getting those team members who will deliver, you know, experiences and services, and, you know, be capable of supporting operationally in the ways that they want them to. And very often, for when people start to hire in businesses, you know, it's accepting that people are not going to be a clone of the founder director themselves. So what kind of tips or advice can you share with people who are maybe hiring people for the first time or recruiting, so that they get the right people on board and can set themselves up for success?
Yeah, no, it's such a great question. Number one, I would say just changing the language altogether. When I used to look at the people that I work with, I always say work with, not that they're working for me or working for the company. This was a huge language shift. And I think it's so important because we're no longer living in a traditional world where guidance is everything. The reason we get people on board in a company or people on board on projects or whatever is because there is value that is missing that needs to be added in. If you look at it as a concoction or a potion, it's missing within the company, within our structures or whatever that we need to fill in. And so there is this need of having that harmony. So first, let's not talk about it in the sense like, you know, my biggest tip would be just do not think about you're hiring someone. Think about the fact that you're bringing a partner on board in a different capacity. Once I started doing that, I really saw even the onboarding process being different. So I stopped calling it recruiting. I called it the onboarding process. And this onboarding process really shifted. I would actually take the time. Before, I would actually rush into just, you know, your CV, good. Now I don't even look at a CV. I'm like, what is a CV? I don't look at that. I'm like, okay, let's have a chat. First thing I want to do is I want to get to know you. I want to see if you can get to know me. It's so important when I work with someone that I am considerate of them, because again, like I said, I need them just as much as they need this project or they need me. And so there's this harmony that has to be respected. And I think most people who are visionaries or in founders or director stages, they just kind of skimp out on this. They kind of, you know, go like, yeah, anyone will do at this point. But no, anyone will not do, because you are essentially trusting a part of your business to this person, trusting in whatever capacity. So I think just getting on a call, change your onboarding process. Please don't look at CVs. They're great, but if you can figure out a different, innovative way, like right now, my companies have a completely different format of like onboarding. And if you can figure out a different and a creative way that fits you to actually like, okay, I'm putting out this message and I'm putting this out, and whoever fits me, amazing. And usually I've noticed that it comes from people that I've had the best connection with. So if you have a good connection with this person, please go for it, give it a shot. And when you're considering to work with someone, always consider people you've already spoken to, that you already have a base connection with, instead of someone completely new. It's amazing to have, you know, that opportunity open for people who are completely new, but you will be amazed, just amazed how someone you've probably had a conversation, like, you know, on whatever level. I have a large network, and I tend to usually rely on my network to kind of get this process going. And it has been so effective. So look at your network first. You will be surprised how someone is ready to, tap into a different skill set. Maybe they need that opportunity to be tapping into that different skill set. Because I remember for Sway to Success, when I was onboarding one of the intimate team members, they originally came on board and they sent their CV, and I was like, I don't want to see your CV. I just want to get on a call with you. Let's chat. We chatted, and I realized she had more to offer. She had different things to offer. So the position that she would have fit wasn't created. But as soon as after that call, it kind of got my wheels rolling, and I had a discussion with the immediate team, and I was like, can we create a position that could, again, this is where you adapt to the goal, right? Can we create a different position that can still fit all of these skill sets? Because I see that she's amazing in all of this, but also make us reach our goals. And they were like, yeah, 100%, it's doable. We just need to, get some nooks and crannies out the way and look at them. And I was like, okay, awesome. So within the next 2-3 days, we got in touch with her, and she was equally excited. She's like, I never thought about it this way. And I'm like, yeah, neither did I, because I was going in such a traditional way, like, this is what I need. But then after that conversation, because it was so collaborative, so like our needs were like in sync. And so because of that, it just made the process so much more beautiful, so much more easy. And yeah, she's now like on board, and we had similar experiences. Now the intimate team is literally built on the foundations of creative sections that we actually had to create for them. But I love it because we're still getting our 7 figures every year, and that's what matters. And we're still impacting people and still reaching out to people and still doing my real work, So yeah, change the language and be open to possibilities. When I say open, like not just on a mental level, like actually start physically preparing yourself, like ditch the CV thing, try a different approach, try to just keep it casual, try to keep it informal at first, because automatically when you put on this formal aspect to like, oh, I'm looking for someone, blah, 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 there is usually a level of like this veil, this hidden veil. And automatically it puts the other person who probably is in need, right, on a pedestal, on a pressure of like, I have to impress, I have to do this. And this is very psychological. I'm a psychologist by nature. So this is a very psychological thing. And I wanted to take that stress away, that pressure away, and just wanted to see how can we make magic together, right? And so yeah, if you can ditch the traditional ways of working and create your own way that works for your company, trust me, you will be calling in some of the best people. And I also think at the same time, being open to not having something full term. One of the things that I've seen as we're moving in the world is that people think that having a solid company means having someone work with you for like ever. But I don't think that's the case at all. Like I've had a strategist for Sway to Success who onboarded the first 2 years, and she was amazing. And then we had to change the strategist because her main goal was to get the first 2 years rolling. And after that, she wanted to continue working with brands and personalities and companies that still had that same focus. And I was like, yeah, of course, do you. Now I had to change the focus and get someone on board who was more adapted and well versed with the idea of like, okay, now after the second year, how does the scaling look? How does this look? So keeping, again, letting go of that rigidity and being like, as my company grows, the people will graduate away from it and sometimes graduate to different positions within. Like I myself, I was the chief executive officer for KV when I started, but it no longer felt right to me. So I actually became the chief developmental officer. And at first everyone was like, but why did you step down from the CEO? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, it just was the right call. It's not downgrading. It's not anything. It's just that for the growth of the company and keeping myself in mind, it was better because my skill sets are so much better in focusing on how to develop the company than to focus on the execution of it. And there are other ways I can help the execution of it. So keeping this in mind, because I think people get very caught up on titles, caught up on like, this is the kind of permanency I want. I mean, openness in that sense as well. So yeah, this would make getting the right people, the right team, amazingly sorted, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it is about, people have strengths, but they have things that they're passionate about and come easy to them that can fulfill them in ways that, they may be able to fulfill a position or role, but if they're not passionate about it and they don't love doing it, that comes through, I think, in the business and the output that they create. So yeah, thank you for that. And we went on a little tangent there about employees, but it was really worthwhile, I think. And if I could just take you back to the incredible success that you've achieved in your business. And I know you accredit your husband and your amazing team for getting you to where you have been. But let's say in terms of branding, in terms of marketing, in terms of sales and customer experience, which of those has helped you accelerate that success and get to where you are now, where you are today in 6 different businesses?
Thank you so much. Honestly, every time someone reminds me of it, I'm like, oh yeah, because I have like momentary dissociation. But honestly, out of all the 3, I cannot pick or choose. I think at each point, like at the very beginning, branding wasn't a big thing because branding wasn't necessary. And I don't think it is for anyone who's just starting off. I've worked with a lot of startups. I've worked with a lot of startup founders. If you're just starting off and if you haven't seen the results that you want to see, that should be your primary focus, making sure that you're strategizing and implementing. Strategizing, implemented. Those are the 2 key things that need to be the focal point of your business at the beginning stages to make sure that you reach your goal. Because once you have that income flow, that cash flow, all of that good stuff, you can focus on really establishing. So that's what happened. That's what happened for my businesses as well. The beginning part wasn't about branding. The beginning part was strategizing. The beginning part was strategizing and implementing. But at the same time, the strategizing and implementing did not leave branding behind either. So that's why I say that all the 3 aspects that you talked about, which is the branding, marketing, strategizing, all of that played such an integral role, but on different levels. So at the beginning stages, the branding was very minimum, but also it was 1 aspect or 2 aspects or 3 different aspects of branding that we incorporated in our strategy to make sure we at least had some solid ground so that the messaging was clear, so that, the right people were finding us. So we were connecting with the right people. So that helped us kind of create the foundation stages for like, okay, what kind of strategies do I need? Usually I think people get lost in the fact that a strategy is just a one-shot thing. Marketing, for example, is like one thing and then that's it. Or it's like a collection. No. You need multiple strategies. And I knew this, I had to learn this the hard way at the beginning. I was like, a strategy that will just have like 3-4 things put together. But really, you need strategy at the beginning stages that includes a lot of different facets, which is, I think, why it's so important to focus on like, what do you want your goal to be? Who do you want to market to? And then accordingly have marketing strategies that kind of flow with it. And then side by side have content strategies or branding strategies or networking strategies. There are so many, there's a plethora of strategies to implement and to absorb, but the right ones will only be incorporated and put into your business once you kind of realize, okay, what is my main goal for the first year? What is the main goal for the first quarter or second quarter or whatever? So at the beginning stages, what really helped me and my team, well, let's go beginning, when it was just my husband and I, what really helped us was to kind of focus on what are we good at? Okay, how can we use what we're good at? And try to double down on that as much as we can. So in practical sense, I'm an amazing networker and I'm a talker. I'm someone who can just chat up with someone, make them feel really good. And the next thing I know that we're talking about like a plethora of things. And then they start opening up to me about like, this is what's happening to me. This is where I need to go. So I was like, okay, awesome. And I also went to art school. So I had this predisposed thing of visual direction. I knew branding, and my husband had experience of like 10 plus years of his own thing. He was in the technical aspect. He knew designs. He knew media. He worked as a social media manager. He worked at, making sure the planning was coming to the execution level and outputs were ready. So the technical aspects were his thing. Once we looked at our skill sets, we're like, okay, How can we use these skill sets? So I started taking on the role of communicating, finding leads, warming them up, speaking to them. My husband, on the other hand, he handled all the technical aspects, which is if an invoice needed to be drafted out, he'd be the one doing it. If, for example, a welcome booklet needed to be drafted up, he would be doing it. If the agreement part, anything that was like the technical, the legwork, he would be doing it because it was so easy for him. As long as he had the guidance from me of like, this is where we need to go, this is what we need to do. So the first 3 to 6 months, that's what got us where it got us, because we were just constantly like, we want to make this easy. This is something that we told ourselves, we promised ourselves, we want to make this easy. We're not going to try and tap into something that we have no clue about, because that would mean spending another 6 months or a year just trying to learn that. And it's not like we didn't improve ourselves or didn't learn. I enrolled into like a bunch of marketing shit, but all of it in some way or the other were kind of redirecting to the fact of like, focus on your skill set, focus on what you've already got, and try to use the resources that are already with you, within you, around you to do that. So that's how we built, my husband and I, that's how we built out our entire network. And the referral system was just doing great. And from there, that's how we hit our first 6 figures. Like, we actually scaled up our prices because we realized that there were some clients who would come in and they're like, I don't want to know your prices. And we were just like, okay, all right. They didn't want to know. They didn't want to look at our catalog. They just were like, and this was in like the 2nd or 3rd month. They came in and they were like, we don't want to look at your pricing. We saw your work. You did some work for a friend or this or that, and we want to replicate this, but this way. So they told our needs, and then we had a conversation. And what really worked, and I think this is an integral part, try to always speak to the visionary behind the brand, behind the company. If I hadn't done that, I would always try to be like, I don't want to speak to the manager. I would love to speak to the founder, to the person who actually built this brand. Because that way, a lot of the work just gets, easier because it's coming straight from the person's mouth. And once like I got that direction from the person, I was like, okay, let's move on to the manager and these departments and these departments. So that really helped to just kind of double down on that. And once we saw that, okay, there are a lot of these clients who are coming in and they're like, we have big projects and we don't really know how much the budget is going to be. We don't want to know the budget yet. Can you just have a look through of what we need? And I was like, okay, so customization. That was kind of, and it still is in KV, one of the biggest things. We are such an intuitive company. We were at the beginning, we still are. And when I say intuitive, we really kind of read between the lines and we really take the time to like invest ourselves into the company's vision. So we like ask questions, and I always say this when I'm meeting the director, I'm like, be prepared. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. And then they just laugh it off. They're like, we're ready. We know, because they're in that position, So asking tons of questions, just being fully ready to like soak that in. And based on that, we were able to customize so much of our products in a way that didn't put a dent in our day-to-day operations. It didn't put a dent in us. It was just, something that wouldn't even take anything out of us. So being able to have that option really helped us scale. Like, I remember one of the clients himself, the director, was like, when we gave him the quota, he was like, I'm not paying you that. That's too less. And that's when we realized, okay, we'll come back to you. Give us like a day or two. And then when we invoiced him something else, it was a ballsy move from our end. So I think it was like a 5K package. And then we finally like pitched it for like a 12K to 16K package. And we were like, we gave him options still, like 12K, 16K. And then he was like, I don't even want to look at the 12K, 16K. And I was like, okay. And we realized this wouldn't have happened if the customer journey was shit. And I know this is something that you kind of like excel in and amazing at. So customer journey was a really big part that really made KV what it is. Right now, the language, the messaging, and everything in KV, STS, and all the other businesses really come from me and my husband, because we have set the foundations of how we want the welcoming, the process, the onboarding to be. And we realize the better our clients feel when they are just having even the smallest interaction with us. And every process, every step that we take them through, like A, B, C, right from the beginning, if we treat them as no longer as a lead, but like, I'm invested in you as you are my client already. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is not expending your resources, but just speaking to them, just, behaving with them and being engaged with them as you would be with a client who's already paying you or already has paid you. That was a key thing in making us really jump our numbers. And so, yeah, like I said, everything was integral, but I really think just doubling on the fact that what was our goal, in alignment to our goal, just to recap, in alignment to our goal, what strategies really fit us. For us, at the beginning, it was just making sure that in branding aspect, our messaging was right. In the branding aspect, the fact that we were sure about what is the image that we wanted to put out to the audience that we were trying to attract. And also keeping in mind that we wanted it to be easy. And so if we wanted it to be easy, we wanted to focus on resources that we already had. Instead of thinking of like, oh, we're starting this, let's look at different ways we could now spend more money on more resources. I don't think that's the way at the beginning until you see cash flow. Just hold on tight and try to be resourceful within yourself, within your surroundings. And never be afraid. I think in networking aspect, never be afraid to ask big. I think that really helped us as well. We approached some big companies. For example, KV has worked with NVIDIA. I don't know if you've heard about them. NVIDIA, Ubisoft, Logitech, Australian Institute of Sports. These are some big names that we've worked with. And it wouldn't have happened if we just sat behind and be like, yeah, y'all are all sorted. We don't need to get in touch with you. But because we did, and because we used our network, eventually we got into their network, got into their, site, and they were like, yeah, by the way, we saw your work, blah, blah, blah. This person talked about you. Would you guys be open to doing this? And we're like, would we be open to doing this? We're just starting out. We'd be more than grateful. So I think these things are just integral. Asking big, making sure that you're always molding and kind of developing your packaging as you're going, having that openness to like customizing your products for an individual client. It's good to have a base, but it's also good to have a base that's buildable on, And lastly, customer journey. Please make your leads feel like their clients. Mm-hmm. If they feel that investment, they feel that's where you're building trust. Trust building does not happen any other way if you guys are strangers. You have to make them feel like you're really in this, and don't even try faking it because they will pick up on that. So that's why I say it's so important to make things easy for yourself. If you have your audience, an idea of like who the audience is, what the audience is, because everyone that came to us in KV was so easy. We didn't really have to run behind clients. We didn't have to chase. We spoke and we just put the intention, whoever we speak to, we're going to ask big. We're going to say, this is what we're doing. And we're going to show our samples and see what happens. And what happened was clients were getting onboarded. So if you have that intention and follow that intention with actual action steps, you're going to get there.
Fantastic. Swey, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And lastly, very final question. What do you have coming up in your business? What's happening for you in the next 6 to 12 months?
Right now in my business, there's a lot happening in my businesses. A lot's happening. But KV has launched a lot of bundles. We're trying this thing right now where we're kind of bundling up things from one company with the other. So for example, in Sway Success, more of the focus is on the mentorship and the guidance. We're kind of packaging that with KV's branding and content creation. So basically providing best of the both worlds of giving that guidance and at the same time actually showing and doing the implementation work with our clients. And this has been such a fantastic journey. We actually launched it, I think, the first bundle was launched like 3 to 4 months ago just to test it out in the market. And it's been really good. It's been a really good response. We realized, okay, people like when there are multiple things offered. And so that's what's going on. One of our bundles is called a CEO Blueprint Bundle, and it is doing amazing. The other one is called the Visionary Path. These two right now are just so heavily focused on giving that support one-on-one. And while the team is doing in the back end all the implementation work with the person, and just to make sure that we bring their vision to life. This is specifically for visionaries who are ready to go like, I've reached a stage where I don't just need support, but I need someone to be there with me on the journey of my support, of me growing, of me scaling. So yeah, that's what's happening.
Amazing. So folks, you will find all of the details in relation to Swey and her amazing businesses in the show notes below. So do check it out. Be sure to subscribe to the show, share if you've enjoyed listening to this episode, and leave any comments below. Thank you so much.